It's that time of year again, that easy week between Christmas and New Year's when we should all be relaxing and spending time with loved ones. And that goes for us too, us podcasters. So you're off the hook for your history lesson today. It's going to be a short episode. Join us for a quick look back at 2023 and a quick look forward at what's next on today's trip down memory card lane. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope these words find you well. Hello, and welcome to the 174th episode of our video game history podcast, A Trip Down Memory Card Lane. Each week, we'll tell you the story about one topic relevant to the current week in gaming history. It can be about a game, a console, a person, just some topic relevant to this week. While doing so, we hope to teach you something new about the topic, what it took from the world as its inspiration, or what it gave back to the world in its legacy. I don't know why I went through all that, because the week between Christmas and New Year's, when the whole world is on break, we do not do that. Today is not a day of learning, it is a day of rest. Everyone is spending time with their families, enjoying well-earned time off, going back to work, coming off of work, all that fun stuff. So we too decided to cut ourselves a little bit of slack. Today will not be a history lesson on some topic in gaming history. Instead, it will be our own look back at the past year in podcasting and a quick look forward at what's in store. It's our own little wrap up for 2023, our 2023 year in review, if you will. I'm David Casson, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, who has endured yet another year of sitting there and listening to me yammer on about video game history. He's my brother, Rob Casson. Rob, are you ready to do this for another year?
Only time will tell, Dave.
Yeah, that's yeah. Time does tell. It tells stories. Hence why we're here every week.
You got that right.
What you been playing? Had time for some video games lately?
Well, yes, actually. I had quite a lot of time. I managed to play a number of games, including a new one at least. So this week saw some RuneScape, as always. As has been the norm lately, some Car Mechanics Simulator and Valheim. I got to play a schmidgen of Farming Simulator. We tried out a game called Sunken Land.
We did.
And I believe that is it for me for this week. So, yeah. How about yourself?
Valheim and Sunken Land were our combo games. The games that I played when we weren't together. I played another level of Hi-Fi Rush. I got that snuck in there. I did that while I was waiting for Hogwarts Legacy to download, which I played for an evening.
Nice, nice.
And I played through a little bit more of Alan Wake 2. I finally played the famous musical episode, or musical level in Alan Wake 2, and it was everything I hoped for and more.
That is incredible.
And I'm really glad because it's been all over TikTok and YouTube and everything, and I've managed to not watch a playthrough that shows the entire thing, and I'm glad I did because there were I knew what to expect, but also there were surprises left in there for me specific to the. I mean, it's literally a musical episode. The name of the episode is called "We Sing," so
Nice. That's awesome.
it was a lot of fun. It left me with a big smile on my face, and I was giggling as it was happening, and my wife was rolling her eyes behind me, so it was worth every bit of money I paid as the cost of admission.
I was
So
going to say, that's how you know it's worth it, is when you're having a great old time and the wife is just rolling her eyes at your whateverness.
Yep, my weirdness. So good time. And Hogwarts Legacy is a good time too. Shaping up to be a good open world game. I'm having a lot of fun with that one too.
Hell yeah, right on. A lot of good games this week.
So back 2023, let's take a look. Our year started way back in episode 123. in which we learned about the founding of the play games by mail industry and how that contributed to the creation of Wasteland, the post apocalyptic role playing game originally released in January of 1988. Rob, did you remember that we learned about the play games by mail industry?
Yeah, I remember that. I don't know that I mentioned this in the episode, but wasn't like I believe it's called Subnautica, a game that we've tried. Wasn't that originally something like that too? Maybe it wasn't
Subnautica.
by mail or like by mail in.
Subterfuge.
Subterfuge, that's the one. Thank you. Not Subnautica, Subterfuge.
That's a great question. I don't know if that was by mail, but I that exists in the same genre of games that would be part of that industry for sure. So
Gotcha.
I had forgotten. In all honesty, I forget things all the time. You know, we do this week in week out. I had forgotten we even covered the games by mail industry, so that was a nice look back. And our year ended last week. The history part of our year ended last week, rather, with a game hidden within a game, as we learned in episode 173 that the initial development of the golden standard of car simulators, Gran Turismo, was hidden inside Polyphony Digital's first game, Motor Tune Grand Prix.
And on that, I was playing Car Mechanic Sim and saw the Nismo, and for the first time was like, oh, I actually understand that now.
I know what a Nismo stands for. That's awesome. Along the way, we've celebrated some birthdays. Resident Evil 2 turned 25, as did Xenogears and StarCraft. We did episodes on all three. Star Fox joined the Dirty 30s this year. You can learn about that in episode 130. Yeah, that's a fun coincidence I didn't realize until now.
Ah, look at that.
We managed to find excuses to talk about our own interests that aren't necessarily video game related. We learned where the collectible card game Magic the Gathering came from in episode 137. We learned about the history of chess in episode 142. We visited a museum designed around playing with things in episode 151, the Creepy Doll Museum. It's not really Creepy Doll Museum, but that's how it got its start, didn't it? The Strong Museum of Play. Wasn't it a lady's like doll collection, doll houses and dolls in her mansion?
You remember better than I do, Dave. I just remember the Strong Museum of Play.
I know it's on our we gotta go on our bucket list of places to visit. We covered the first video game consoles designed by Nintendo, Sega's first console, Sony's first console. So that was fantastic. We finally covered Super Mario Brothers in episode 159, one of my favorite little tidbits from this year. And we managed to cover a bunch of other heavy hitters like God of War, Bioshock, Metal Gear Solid, Portal, Tomb Raider, Mass Effect, and Halo. It has been one heck of a year for us in terms of podcast episodes.
One heck of a year indeed, Dave.
I feel like we've hit our stride. I don't know how you feel about things, but this is the year that we've kind of shifted into this format that is strictly history, so to speak. You know, we were kind of already doing it at the beginning of the year, but you know, this is our first entire year with this format. And I think that it works well. And I kind of feel like we've hit our stride, in all honesty. I don't know how you feel about it.
I exist, Dave.
You exist. That's what you're here for, is to exist.
That I am. No, I definitely agree. You want to talk history, you're damn good at it. It's kind of what you studied in school, and obviously we have a shared love of video games, so it's fitting. And you're right. I definitely think that having given the full year, hitting our stride, hitting the ground running, and just got to keep moving forward and talking about games.
Did you ever miss reviews?
Yes and no. I mean, we kind of cover it a lot when we're talking about like Metacritic and stuff, when we talk about how a game was received in the general. Sometimes those reviews were pretty damn funny, but at the same time, I mean, sometimes it was just impossible to find anything, and it was hit or miss that we'd have any anyway. So at least now we have full content, and it's a lot of work for you, but not me.
That's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind it at all.
I'm teasing.
It's just straight writing, and this framework works well. Not having to do the back and forth. Just I don't know, something about my brain and the way to map these out that works really well for me. So, like I said, I feel like this format we've had our stride.
Yeah, by
Uh,
Dave saying back and forth, he means he wants to be the one talking all the time and just not have me.
you
You heard
can
it
do
here.
you can do an episode. It's all yours.
Yeah, okay.
Well, per usual, we have the next year and episodes mapped out. I'll have the calendar up in a few days for the new year. For real this time. I think last year I did like January and February when the year started and slowly trickled them out until the middle of the year when I finally have the whole calendar done. I already have the whole calendar done, the visual calendar for the website done for next year. And of course, when you view the calendar, you'll see everything that we have in store for 2020, everything that we have in store for 2024. But, this is a look back and a look forward. So let's take some time and talk about what we have in store for you next year. 2024 is going to start out with next week, episode 175. We're going to be discussing the history of Nokia Corporation and the Snake video game genre, which definitely found its most popular heyday when Nokia put snakes on their phones, which is the catalyst for the episode. I just got done writing that one. It's pretty cool. Uh, our history lessons for the year will end on 225. Our year in review will be 226, but our history lessons will end on 225 with an episode on Baldur's Gate. Everybody knows Baldur's Gate right now because Baldur's Gate 3 just won every single award it was nominated for, including Game of the Year at the Video Game Awards. So we're going to go back to the beginning and look at that series and talk about Forgotten Realms, which is the D&D campaign fantasy setting that Baldur's Gate takes place in. So we've got that lined up for the end of the year. We have some birthdays this year. Super Metroid joins the Dirty 30s. Eh?
Oh, look at that.
1994 Super Metroid.
Oh,
System.
shit.
Yeah, I know. I know what you were just thinking. Yeah, I know what you were just thinking. Got one more year, kiddo. Enjoy it while you can.
Damn.
Unfortunately, that means it's mine. You know that, right?
Oh, I know.
Okay. System Shock 2 turns 25, so we'll be looking at the game that inspired many games after it. BioShock would be one that comes to mind. System Shock 2 is the spiritual predecessor to all that kind of stuff. World of Warcraft turns 20 years old. So, we'll find out just how many hours people have given to the World of Warcraft. And Minecraft turns 15. So we'll finally be taking a look at the best selling video game of all time, which is Minecraft to this day. We'll take a look at that too. In 2024, we'll be celebrating the Summer Olympics in August, and we'll do an episode in August by talking about the history of the Olympics and video games that let you become an Olympian during the Olympics in August. So look forward to that. We're going to finally get around to the Microsoft Xbox, Microsoft's first home console. We'll talk about the Atari 2600. We'll talk about the Nintendo Entertainment System. So we've got some video game consoles that are very significant to video game history. And in terms of the games that go on consoles, there are no doubt some fan favorites along the way. We'll be covering the history of Final Fantasy VII this year. We're going back to the beginning and finally covering The Legend of Zelda. We'll take a look at the first Red Dead Redemption. We'll cover Space Invaders, finally, The Last of Us. We're finally getting around to Castlevania, Devil May Cry, and Super Mario 64. A lot of really great stuff tucked in there, huh?
I swear I'm having deja vu because I feel like we've talked about all of these.
We have not talked about them in this format. So Final Fantasy VII, we talked about in our second episode before we were covering history when we were still trying to do that whole touchy-feely nostalgia thing. The Legend of Zelda, we have done the Ocarina of Time and one more, but we've never covered how the series was created. Red Dead Redemption, we covered the first game in the series, Red Dead Revolver, but
Okay.
we've never covered Red Dead Redemption. We've I thought we had, but we had never done Space Invaders. That is not a game we specifically did an episode on. The Last of Us, which we've talked about but never done an episode on. Castlevania, we did Symphony of the Night, but we never covered the beginning of the series. And we only did the Devil May Cry reboot. We've never covered the how Devil May Cry series itself was created.
So just things that are very, very similar to everything that we've covered.
Well, we are I mean in some cases like The Legend of Zelda and Castlevania and Devil May Cry, we've covered other games in the series, but we've never covered the beginning of the series. It's the opposite for Red Dead Redemption because we did cover the beginning of the series, but we never learned how they went from Red Dead Revolver to Red Dead Redemption. And yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy VII, we have talked about that at more than one episode, but we've never actually talked about how it came to fruition. So just a lot of games that I've wanted to cover the beginning of Castlevania for a while. I just never fit it into the schedule. Or The Legend of Zelda. I'm really surprised that's coming quick because that's a February episode. And Final Fantasy VII, I think, is coming quick too, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I think that's a January episode. Let me see real quick. Calendar. Technically, the 2024 calendar is already online. I just never linked to it. No. February is both Final Fantasy VII and The Legend of Zelda. They're both in February. So they are coming quick, though, because that's going to be here before you know it.
Got that right.
Oh, we're covering Kirby's Dream Land, too. The beginning of of Kirby. We're covering the creation of Kirby. How did I forget that one?
I don't know, Dave. That's a pretty important one.
Good lord. RoboCop. We're covering RoboCop at some point. Five Nights at Freddy's, Crash Bandicoot. You're gonna like that one, huh? You love
Got
Crash
that right.
Bandicoot.
It's my jam.
That's your jam, Crash Bandicoot.
Used to be. Not as
Yeah, it was a good game. We have a lot of solid episodes on the schedule this year. A lot of heavy hitters, a lot of things to be excited for. We'll be covering Snake next week, like I said, but the week after that, we're going to learn about Spider Man. So that's super exciting. Zork is coming up. What else? Oh, the beginning of the Elder Scrolls series. First game in that series. Missed that one too. A lot of the beginnings. A lot of beginnings. We got a lot of beginnings. But but not every episode that we cover are things that you might know because of course I like to throw in episodes on games that people might not know much about. So, for instance, we did an episode last year on Myst, and I kind of talked about other games in this series, but one thing I want to talk about is they made an online version of Myst, and it has an incredibly interesting story about its rise and fall. So we're going to cover that this year. We are going to cover a game called Amnesia, which is a text adventure, the only text adventure that was ever created by Electronic Arts, only full text adventure. We have an episode on do it yourself gaming. So we're going to look at like software that lets gamers make their own games throughout the 80s and 90s, the early stuff. We have an episode on a video game by H.R. Geiger, who's a guy whose art style you'd know if you saw it. He's all about biomechanical art. You would definitely know the art style if you saw it. And what else? What else is weird? What else is weird? What else is weird? Oh, we're gonna do Robin Hood video games, and we're gonna do a game called Getaway. So we got a lot of stuff in there. A nice mix of well known, not well known. Games that are important, games that aren't important. Not they're all important. What the heck am I trying to say?
I
Games
have
that
no idea, Dave.
I'm just rambling at this point. There's a nice mix of episodes for next year. That's the point. Nice mix of episodes for next year. There's a little something for everybody in the mix. And most importantly, a whole lot of learning to do. Which brings us to our summary. Each week, we'll tell you a story. It usually has to do with a topic from that week in gaming history. Sometimes it's about the games, sometimes it's about the gaming consoles, sometimes it's about the people who have made the games and the gaming consoles. And even sometimes it's about the technologies that go into making games and the gaming consoles. But one thing is for sure, no matter what story we tell you, we do so to teach you something new about the topic, what it took from the world as its inspiration, or what it gave back to the world in its legacy. And when we teach you new things, we inevitably learn new things ourselves. So, as we look to wrap up the year, Rob, I have one question to ask. What in the heck did you learn this year? What sticks
I
out? So we have a whole year of episodes. Like, what are some things that stand out that you've been like, that's cool, we learned that. Like, I'm not gonna forget that. I know that's a hard question for you because you forget that, but you know what I mean. So
I forgot what I remembered to forget.
yeah. Any cool stuff though? Any cool stuff stand out that like something you were like, I didn't know that, and it's gonna stick with you. So I'll give you one as an example. I like we did Super Mario Brothers this year, and I like knowing that they learned from Excite Bike, and the thought that that little acceleration deceleration that Mario does probably got its start from the Excite Bike itself, the motorcycle itself, just tickles my fancy every time I think about it.
Or how Mario was named after the warehouse owner or storage
Yeah.
owner.
Yeah, Sagale. Yeah, yeah. That's always a good one. That wasn't a new one for me though. That's something that's well known in the circles.
Oh, bleh. I
Meh.
don't know. I mean, I obviously it's harder for me to remember the older things, but some of the ones that I definitely remember that stick out from more recent episodes. I mean, Gran Turismo race car driver to help improve the game and the skills from the game translated into real life. That's freaking phenomenal.
That's cool for sure.
And then the Sony Nintendo PlayStation.
The Sony Nintendo PlayStation.
That was
Absolutely.
I had no idea. I've always known them as competing companies. To just know that there was any kind of involvement between Sony and Nintendo for the development of that console, it's like, damn, that's pretty crazy.
It's really crazy. For sure. Very crazy. Looking back at our calendar from this year, there's episodes that like I think about but don't think about. Like our second episode of the year was on adventure and we talked about Easter eggs in video games. We did Sword Quest this year and we learned about the gaudy prizes that they remember they had like the jewel
Yep,
encrusted
the
sword.
shallot, the sword. Yeah,
Yeah, that one. That's cool. That's cool as all get out. We did typing games. We did a history of typing games. The
yeah, Mavis Bacon.
Texorcist, Mavis Bacon, the Texorcist.
And what was
Rob,
that weird ass one that you had me play? Who does typing?
David Lynch teaches
That's it.
typing.
Yes, such a oh my gosh. Oh, that one was just that. For anyone who did not listen to that episode, look up the game, give it a try. It is just
It's
it,
David Lynch. It's
and if you
perfect.
don't know David Lynch, like it doesn't make sense. It's out of this world. But like if you know
That's
David
David
Lynch,
Lynch.
obviously according to Dave, it makes perfect sense. But for someone like me who has no idea, that was trippy as hell, but well worth it.
Speaking of weirdness, we covered Mr. Mosquito.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites from my childhood.
We talked about David Jaffe twice with a God of War and a crap. What was the other one we did of his? Twisted Metal. Durr. We talked about him with a God of War and a Twisted Metal episode. We did an episode on King Arthur. We did an episode on Frankenstein. We had some good stuff this year. I like, since we're on the topic of things that tickle us that we learned. I like the fact that Bruce Willis is the prototype for Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Yes, incredible.
In some world somewhere, there is a digital likeness of Bruce Willis, at least as much of a digital likeness of Bruce Willis as you can have in 1990. I don't know, 7, 8, 9, whatever it was, on a skateboard. That was their prototype. I also enjoy the fact that I really enjoy the game that they had the development of Gran Turismo in their early game. I just think that's fantastic. And look
It
at what it
really is.
and look at like what it amounted to, you know?
No, it's definitely incredible and it's very crafty. That was just a genius move, and obviously developers of that game have just gone above and beyond with every single one of them from what we talked about. So
Yeah. So
good on
we
them.
we had a lot of great stuff last year. We have a lot of great stuff planned for you next year, and that is cause for everyone to be excited. Cause for everyone to be excited. I named off a bunch of stuff. Is there the stuff that I named that's coming up? Is there anything that you're like looking forward to?
Hmm. What'd you name?
Damn it!
Now, obviously, Crash Bandicoot, you mentioned one of my favorite game series growing up. We're going to talk Devil May Cry, the original, the games that actually I enjoyed and got me into the series. So that's huge.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII, as we've said, is one of my oldest, if not my oldest, gaming memory. So finally being able to talk the production of that, and although I've never beaten it, The Legend of Zelda was a game that haunted me in high school as I tried playing it on an emulator. So it'd be interesting to know more about that one too. So, I mean, obviously, those are just some of my favorite game series, having growing up or even still now to this day. So, there's definitely a lot of ones that are exciting. And then learning about all these weird random games because you sometimes find some of the craziest crap.
I do find crazy stuff. I have a bunch of crazy stuff. I have a bunch of crazy stuff planned. And then starting out the year talking about the Nokia Corporation. We learned about Sony this year too, like where Sony came from. That was cool. Yeah, I mean we had a lot of really great stuff. So, if you want to learn more about any of these topics, you can see our calendar of upcoming events. You want to check out any of the old episodes that we just talked about, you can do so by going to our website, www.memorycardlane.com. Rob, what else can people do on our website?
Well, by the time this episode is released, hopefully Dave will have posted the calendar of our future episodes for 2024 so you can see a reminder and visuals of what our upcoming topics are.
It's
You can
literally
find
it's literally already up. It's up. I just have to change the link from 2023 dash calendar to 2024 dash calendar. If you manually type it, it's already there.
Okay, Dave. So it'll be another month till he gets it linked.
Mm-hmm.
You can find a link to our Discord where you can come hang out with Dave and I and talk video games or whatever else you got on your mind. You can also find a link to our Patreon where you're for a few bucks, you can help support Dave and I in the production of this podcast, as well as get access to ad-free and unedited episodes. And you can also find links to our social medias where I am on several platforms as Rob_O_Raptor and Dave.
I can be found on various platforms as David is wrong. Each week, no, I'm just kidding. We already did that this week. I put them out of order. I did it on purpose. I know I did it on purpose, but that'll do it, Rob. That'll do it for 2023. And yeah, it was a good year. I'm looking forward to another year of doing this, and we'll see what happens for there. Before we look forward to next week's episode, is there anything you'd like to add to this discussion?
Of course, Dave. As always, I want to take a moment to say thank you very much to everyone for listening. Whether you've been here with us from the start or started last week, it doesn't matter. We're really appreciative to have you guys along for the ride with us, and it just means the world to us. So, thank you for another great year of doing what we love and being here to support us.
Very true. Well, the Snake video game genre gained the most popularity in the late 90s when Nokia put it on their 6110 phone. But the roots of the genre trace all the way back to 1976. Next week, we'll be learning about the history of Snake video games, and I'll be throwing in the history of the Nokia Corporation for fun. So stick around next week as we try not to trip on ourselves on yet another trip down memory card lane. Do the thing.
Scooby Doo Dum 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 Happy New Year.
Okay.